Hey everyone, before you get pulled into tonight's story, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet, and drop a comment below telling me the strangest thing your phone has ever done. Trust me, after you hear what happened to me, you'll want to check your playlists twice. I've always believed that music could drown out anything, bad days, heavy thoughts, the weight of an empty apartment echoing with your own heartbeat. I think that's why I let Spotify run my life as much as I do. It's embarrassing to admit how much trust I've put in an algorithm to keep me company, but when you spend most nights alone, scrolling endlessly, you start leaning on anything that promises to know you better than you know yourself. It started with a study playlist, just another ordinary Monday night. I'd settled into my desk, cheap takeout balanced on a stack of bills I still hadn't opened. The hum of my monitor matched the low hum in my head, that constant buzz that only music could kill. I didn't even look at the suggested tracks. I just hit play and let it fill the room with something that wasn't my own thoughts. Half an hour in, my eyelids drooped. A beat I'd never heard before pulled me back. I glanced at the screen. There was a new playlist at the very top of my feed. It hadn't been there before. Its title was short, almost polite, "For When You Wake Up Alone." I laughed under my breath, assuming it was one of those moody algorithm-made lists. I clicked it out of curiosity. A slow piano chord seeped through my earbuds. The first song felt warm, gentle, like the musical equivalent of someone tucking a blanket under your chin. I liked it. I kept it on. I thought nothing of it when I dragged myself to bed, leaving my phone on the nightstand with the playlist still rolling. At 3:47 a.m., I woke up cold. My blanket was on the floor, the playlist still playing from the tiny speaker in my phone. I reached over, squinting at the screen. The song was half over. I didn't catch the title. But I heard my name. Clear as day, buried in the chorus, like the singer was whispering right at the edge of the melody. I sat up. Maybe I was still half asleep. I replayed it. This time the words blurred, ordinary lyrics about darkness and longing and waking up alone. I waited for my name, but it didn't come again. The bed felt colder than it should have, the air too still for summer. I turned the playlist off. I told myself it was my mind playing tricks, folding the lyrics into something personal because I'd been alone too long. The next morning, I forgot about it. Sort of. The thought clung to the edges of my mind while I showered, made coffee, pretended to work. By lunch, I'd convinced myself I'd dreamed it. Besides, it's just music. People hear what they want to hear. That night, Spotify greeted me with the same playlist pinned at the top. For When You Wake Up Alone, same cover art, a window at dawn, soft light spilling through half-open blinds. I pressed play again. Part of me wanted to see if I'd imagined it. Part of me liked the way it wrapped around my loneliness like a scarf. The second song was unfamiliar. A soft woman's voice drifted through my headphones as I laid on the couch. Her voice was warm, almost too close, like she was leaning over me. The lyrics were simple. Ordinary lines about a dimly lit room, flickering screens, last night's wine glass on the table. I sat up. The wine glass was still there, half full, beside my keys. I hadn't posted about that. I hadn't told anyone. I hadn't even taken a picture. My phone sat face down on the coffee table, the light from the screen spilling out under it like it was trying to listen in. I paused the song. Scrolled to see who the artist was. No artist listed. Just a dash, like an unfinished thought. The track title was a timestamp, 11:37 p.m. I put my phone down, pacing the apartment barefoot, trying to convince myself it was a glitch. Maybe it pulled data from my calendar. Maybe my microphone was on, maybe the ads people complain about aren't the worst thing our phones are capable of. But the next track was titled Leftover Takeout, the beat kicked in with the sound of distant rain and soft guitar. The singer murmured about cold noodles, plastic chopsticks, a receipt with my name crumpled on the floor. My eyes dropped to the crumpled receipt on my desk, stained with soy sauce. I laughed. A forced, ugly sound. I yanked the headphones out and threw my phone on the couch. I told myself I'd just listen to the same old playlist tomorrow. Something safe. Something algorithm approved. Something predictable. The next day, I didn't open Spotify. I played music from YouTube instead, old tracks, songs I'd saved years ago. Nothing weird. Nothing new. The day passed like stale air. But that night, as I lay in bed, I felt the tug. The phone on my nightstand vibrated with a notification, "Your new playlist is ready." I didn't touch it. I turned over and stared at the wall, my breath loud in the silence. Eventually I drifted off, hoping the morning would feel normal again. But morning came with the same notification. For When You Wake Up Alone now had a new cover, a photo I didn't recognize at first. A close-up of a mug, my mug. The chipped one with the faded comic book print. The one I'd used last night. Sitting exactly where I'd left it by my bed. I opened the playlist. The new song at the top was titled, "Check the Door." The beat was steady, a low pulse under words I didn't want to hear. Check the door, check the door, check the door. I froze. In the soft dawn light, my apartment looked the same. Quiet. Harmless. But the words repeated in my head like an itch I couldn't scratch. I slipped out of bed, crossed the cold floorboards. The front door was locked, chain in place, deadbolt turned. Nothing outside but the pale hallway light buzzing like a dying fly. I stood there for too long, listening for footsteps that never came. Back in my room, my phone screen glowed with the next track queued up, "For When You Pretend You're Safe." I wanted to throw the phone out the window. Instead, I sat at the edge of my bed and listened to the whole song. The singer's voice was soft, almost sympathetic. She talked about locked doors, windows left unlatched, things that could slip through if you weren't careful. When the song ended, the playlist stopped. The screen went dark. I waited for the next sound, an alert, a buzz, another title. But nothing came. Just the hush of early morning, the hum of my fridge, the faraway rumble of a neighbor's shower. I don't know what I expected when I checked Spotify again. Maybe for it to be gone, wiped clean by some glitch. But the playlist sat there at the top of my feed, waiting, patient. The cover art was different again. This time, it showed my bedroom door cracked open just a sliver, dark on the other side. I should have stopped then. I should have closed the app and left it alone. But I didn't. Because the worst part of being alone isn't the silence, it's the noise you make to cover it up. And I thought maybe, just maybe, this playlist knew me well enough to keep me company a little longer. I pressed play. And somewhere behind the music, just before the first note hit, I swear I heard a voice whisper my name like it was standing right beside my bed. I didn't sleep much after that. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard it again, my name, whispered with such quiet certainty it felt like a hand brushing my cheek in the dark. When the sun finally rose, I sat on the edge of my bed staring at the notification still pinned on my lock screen. For When You Wake Up Alone. I deleted the playlist. Or at least I tried to. The delete option wouldn't appear. I tapped every menu, searched every setting, but the playlist refused to vanish. My thumb hovered over the icon as if I could will it away with pure desperation. I decided to leave the apartment. To get air. To remember what it felt like to walk among people who weren't whispering your name through an algorithm. I threw on a hoodie and jeans, slipped into my sneakers, and left without breakfast. Outside, the morning was heavy with heat already, the sky bright and blank as a fluorescent bulb. The world felt solid out here, away from my apartment's dim walls and flickering shadows. But as I walked to the bus stop, I felt a phantom vibration against my leg. My phone wasn't even in my pocket, it was zipped inside my backpack. Still, the sensation haunted me with every step. I spent the day working from a cafe near the university campus. I sat by the window with my laptop, ordered 2 coffees just to linger without guilt, and forced myself to focus on coding reports for clients I didn't care about. I tried not to think about the playlist. I tried not to think about the way my name sounded when sung by a stranger who didn't exist. By noon, my eyes burned from the screen, but I refused to open Spotify. I played music from YouTube instead. Lo-fi beats, no lyrics, no surprises. Nothing that could wedge itself under my skin. Around 3 p.m., I checked my phone out of habit. The lock screen had a notification from Spotify. New playlist for you, for when you're pretending to work. My fingers trembled as I tapped it open. The cover art was a photo of my coffee cup, half drunk, on the table in front of me. Same chipped ceramic mug, same swirl of foamed milk crusting at the rim. But I hadn't taken any pictures today. My camera roll was empty except for old memes and screenshots of error logs from work. I scanned the song titles. Each was just a timestamp, 1:17 p.m., 1:43 p.m., 2:05 p.m. I clicked on the first one. A male voice hummed in a low register, almost a chant. The lyrics were mundane but impossible. Gray hoodie, hair unwashed, empty seat across from you. I snapped my head up and looked around the cafe. Students, freelancers, bored baristas wiping the counter. No one looking at me. No one singing. I checked the artist, just another dash, just emptiness. I closed the app. My stomach twisted with hunger and nausea. I packed my laptop and left without looking back at the barista who thanked me robotically. Outside, the sunlight stabbed into my eyes. I walked home fast, heart pounding, every footstep synced to words echoing in my skull. Gray hoodie, hair unwashed, empty seat across from you. The song's melody refused to fade even though I'd paused it minutes ago. When I reached my apartment, I locked the door, threw my bag on the floor, and checked the playlist again. There were 3 new songs. Each one named after my own phone contacts. Mom. Mark. Dad. My chest clenched so tight I thought my ribs might crack. I clicked the track labeled Mom. There were no lyrics. Just static, warbling through the speakers like a dying cassette tape. I listened for a full minute, hoping for a voice, for context, for something human behind the noise. Nothing came except a rising tone beneath the static, a frequency that made the inside of my skull itch. I closed the app. Deleted it from my phone. This time, it actually deleted. Relief poured through me, a release so powerful I had to sit on the floor, leaning against the locked door, shaking with exhausted laughter. For the first time in days, I felt in control. I cooked dinner, microwaved lasagna, and ate it in silence. The quiet was uncomfortable, but it was mine. That night, I fell asleep early, clutching my pillow like a child. When I woke at 2:53 a.m., my phone was glowing on the nightstand. Spotify wasn't installed anymore, but the screen showed the playlist cover anyway. For when you wake up alone. My thumb hesitated over the screen before tapping it. It opened without launching the app. Just a black background with a single play button. I pressed it. The song started with my front door unlocking. I heard the click of the bolt, the metal scrape of the chain being unhooked, the quiet creak of hinges swinging open. My breath stopped in my throat. The recording continued with soft footsteps crossing hardwood floor. They moved through the living room, past my desk, past the couch, into the hallway. The footsteps reached my bedroom door. The music fell silent for a beat so long I thought my heart had stopped. Then I heard my own breathing. Labored, slow, echoing as if recorded from right above me. A woman's voice whispered through the phone speaker, soft as cotton dragged over skin. "Don't pretend you're asleep." I threw the phone across the room. It clattered against the dresser and fell face down on the floor, still playing. The footsteps continued in the recording, circling my bed. The voice hummed a tuneless melody between breaths. I wanted to scream. I wanted to get up, to run, to check the door, to do anything except lay frozen under my blanket with my eyes wide open in the dark. Then the song stopped. The silence was immediate, absolute. I scrambled out of bed and flipped on every light in the apartment. My phone screen was cracked where it hit the dresser. The playlist had vanished, replaced by my home screen icons, ordinary and bright and utterly meaningless. I checked every lock, every window, every closet, every dark corner. No one was here. No one had been here. I crawled back into bed as dawn began to bleed pale orange through my blinds. My phone buzzed once beside me. I picked it up with trembling fingers. A new notification glowed on the screen. New playlist for you, for when you finally listen. I didn't open it. Not that morning. Not that day. I left my phone on my desk and sat by the window, staring out at the street below as people walked their dogs and rushed to work and laughed into their phones, oblivious to how fragile their reality was. I sat there until the sun was high overhead, my stomach aching with hunger I couldn't feel. That evening, as the sky darkened to bruised indigo, I reached for my phone again. The notification was still there, waiting patiently. My thumb hovered over it, shaking with the urge to delete everything and run, to never hear another note again. But curiosity has its own gravity. Fear only made it stronger. I pressed play. The first song started with a single piano chord, then silence. The voice that followed was calm, male, soothing. We know you're listening. We know you're awake. Don't close your eyes yet. And despite every screaming instinct in my mind, I didn't. Because somehow, deep inside the horror curling around my ribs, I needed to know what came next. I sat frozen on my bed, clutching the phone so tightly my fingers ached. The voice in the song was quiet, almost tender. It sounded like someone trying to calm a panicking animal. The piano faded out, leaving only the low hum of static beneath his words. We know you're awake, he repeated, softer now. We've always known. The track ended abruptly. My breathing rattled in my chest. My room felt smaller somehow, the walls leaning in, the shadows lengthening even though my lamp glowed brightly. A new track loaded instantly. No title, no timestamp, just an empty field where the name should be. I hesitated, thumb hovering over play. But I pressed it anyway. This time, the voice was female, the same woman from the night before. Her tone was sharper, impatient. You think deleting us will help you? She asked. You think ignoring us will make us disappear? We're here because you wanted us here. I shook my head, whispering into the empty room, no. I never wanted this. I never asked for this. But the song continued, unbothered by my denial. We're only showing you what you chose to hide. The track dissolved into a sound that sent goosebumps down my arms, the faint echo of a child crying. I didn't recognize the voice at first, but as it deepened into sobs, I felt something inside me splinter. It was my voice. Younger, thinner, cracking with terrified gasps between hiccuping sobs. My chest tightened until I could barely breathe. I knew this sound. It was the night I got locked in the crawlspace under my childhood home. I'd been 7, playing hide and seek with my cousins. I crawled into the dark, dusty corner behind old storage boxes, and the heavy wooden hatch slammed shut behind me. For hours I screamed and pounded until my throat bled from crying. I'd never told anyone how scared I'd been. When they finally found me, I lied and said I'd fallen asleep. I never wanted them to know how weak I felt, how close I came to losing my mind in the dark. The recording ended with a single sentence whispered in that same woman's voice. We remember everything you try to forget. My whole body shook with silent sobs. Tears streamed down my face, hot and endless, dripping onto the cracked screen of my phone. I curled forward, clutching my knees to my chest. My heart raced so violently I thought it might burst open. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the phone out the window and watch it shatter into dust on the pavement below. But I didn't. Because I needed to know what else they knew. Another track loaded. This one was titled Don't Try to Erase Me. The melody was almost cheerful, upbeat drums, twinkling synth, a poppy bassline. But the lyrics were poison. You deleted me today, the singer crooned, his voice smooth as syrup. You wiped me away. You thought you could forget me. But I am not an app. I am not a song. I am the echo that lives inside your skull. The beat dropped. My vision blurred with dizziness. I pressed pause, fingers trembling so hard I nearly dropped the phone again. My ears rang with silence, the afterimage of that song etched into my mind like a scar. I stood on unsteady legs, walked to the bathroom, and splashed cold water on my face. My reflection looked hollow. My eyes were sunken, skin pale under the dim yellow bulb. I barely recognized myself. I gripped the edge of the sink, knuckles widening. Get a grip, I whispered. It's just an app. Just code. Someone's messing with you. But deep inside, I knew that wasn't true. No one knew about the crawlspace. No one knew the exact words I whispered to myself when I thought I would die down there. No one knew because I'd buried them so deep I almost believed they never happened. I walked back to my bedroom and sat cross-legged on the bed, staring at my phone as if it were a venomous snake. Another track appeared without me touching the screen. When you were locked away. I didn't want to hear it. I couldn't. But my thumb pressed play anyway. This time, there was no music. Only the sound of my ragged breathing, fast and shallow, overlaid with the thudding beat of my heart. Then the woman's voice spoke again, softer now, almost kind. Remember the dark. Remember how it felt against your skin. Remember the silence, and the way it rang louder than screams. Tears streamed down my face again. I couldn't stop them. My whole body trembled with remembered fear, my lungs clenching tight. The voice continued, filling every corner of the room, as if it wasn't coming from my phone but from inside the walls. You learned to be alone that day, she whispered. You learned darkness is safer than people. That's why we're here. That's why you invited us. I sobbed, clapping a hand over my mouth to muffle the sound. My chest heaved with each shaky breath, nausea swirling in my gut. I wanted to deny it, to scream back at her that she was wrong, but the words wouldn't come. Because somewhere, deep beneath my panic, I knew she was right. The track ended. Silence settled around me like a heavy shroud. My phone screen went black. I waited, tense and trembling, for another song to appear. But nothing came. Just my reflection in the dark glass, eyes red and swollen, mouth twisted in silent grief. I wiped my tears with the edge of my sleeve, shivering from the sweat cooling on my skin. For the first time since this nightmare began, I realized how quiet my apartment was without the music. The absence of sound pressed in on me, filling the room with a suffocating emptiness. I set the phone down on my nightstand and crawled under the blanket, curling into a tight ball. My body ached with exhaustion, but sleep didn't come. I stared at the shadows crawling across the ceiling, every muscle tense with dread. Hours passed in that brittle stillness. At some point, my phone buzzed softly beside me. A new notification glowed through the darkness. New playlist for you, for when you can't sleep. I didn't touch it. I pulled the blanket tighter around me and pressed my eyes shut, tears leaking from the corners. But I could hear the first song playing anyway, even without pressing play. The melody slithered into my ears like silk over raw skin. The woman's voice was there, warm and close, her breath curling against my mind. Don't worry, she whispered, her tone almost loving. We'll keep you company tonight. The music played on, sweet and lilting, weaving around the ragged rhythm of my breath. And even though I wanted to rip the phone apart with my bare hands, even though fear clawed at my chest until I couldn't breathe, part of me clung to her words. Because loneliness is a worse poison than fear, and the promise of company, even theirs, was too tempting to silence. As the song drifted on, filling every corner of my room with haunting sweetness, I let my eyes drift open to the dark. I listened to every word, knowing sleep wouldn't come, knowing tomorrow would bring worse. But I listened anyway. Because deep down, I needed to know how this ended. I woke before dawn, my body wrung out like a soaked rag. My eyes burned with the scratchy ache of unslept hours, and every joint felt loose and trembling. The music had stopped sometime in the night, leaving behind an aching silence that gnawed at the base of my skull. I lay there staring at the ceiling, numb to the rising sun seeping through the blinds in dusty gold slats. My phone sat silent on the nightstand. Its dark screen glared at me with quiet malice. I didn't want to touch it. Every fiber of my being screamed to throw it away, to smash it against the wall, to bury it under concrete. But I couldn't. I needed to know what it would say next, even though my gut twisted with dread at the thought. I reached out with shaking fingers and pressed the home button. The screen blinked awake. Spotify was open already, displaying a new playlist pinned to the top. Its title was short, clinical, and somehow colder than all the whispered threats before, for when you finally listen. My thumb hovered over it, trembling. I pressed play. The first track started with silence so dense it roared in my ears. Then, a voice I hadn't heard before, low, calm, and masculine, spoke without melody. "You've done well," he said. "You've listened to everything we've shown you." His tone was soothing, like a doctor explaining a terminal diagnosis. "We know you're frightened. We know you feel alone. That's why we're here." I tried to swallow, but my throat clenched too tight. Tears burned at the corners of my eyes, but they wouldn't fall. My chest rose and fell in shallow gasps, as though my ribs were tightening around my lungs with every word he spoke. "You've hidden so much of yourself," he continued softly. "So many memories. So much pain. You've cut yourself into pieces so small you can't even hear them scream." The track ended with the quiet click of a tape recorder shutting off. Immediately, another track loaded. This time, there was music, a slow, dirge-like piano chord repeating over and over until it sank into my bones. The woman's voice slid in over the melody, heavy with sadness. "Do you remember the day you sat on the overpass railing?" she asked gently. "Do you remember the wind in your hair, the way your heart raced with relief because you thought it would finally end?" I choked on a sob, my vision blurring with tears I couldn't hold back anymore. That memory was locked away so deep I didn't even think of it as real anymore. I'd gone there after failing another job interview, after finding another final notice in my mailbox, after listening to another voicemail from my mother asking why I never called back. I stood on the concrete ledge for nearly 15 minutes, staring at the screaming highway below, each car a promise of final peace. In the end, I climbed back down, numb with disappointment that I'd been too cowardly to end my pain. The song continued, her voice sinking deeper into my chest with every word. "You thought no one saw you that day. But we did. We've always watched you. We've always listened. And now, it's your turn." The piano faded into silence, leaving behind only the ringing in my ears and the thin, reedy sound of my own shallow breathing. My vision swam. I thought I might vomit from the pressure in my chest. A notification buzzed across my screen before the next song could load. It wasn't from Spotify this time. It was an email. The sender address was a string of numbers and symbols that meant nothing to me. The subject line read simply, "Your playlist curator." My thumb hesitated, then tapped it open. The body of the email was short, almost polite. "Hello. We apologize for the fear and confusion. Music is the easiest way to reach you. Words alone are not enough. We've used your memories to create your perfect auditory profile. We need you to listen to the final track to complete your onboarding. This is not Spotify. We are not human. But we want to understand. Please press play." My stomach lurched with cold nausea. The phone buzzed again. Spotify was open once more, displaying a single new track. No cover art, no timestamp, no title. Just a black square with the white play icon in the center. I pressed it. The song began with a chorus of overlapping voices, all murmuring in different pitches, blending into a swelling drone that rattled the air in my chest. Beneath the noise, something pulsed like a distant drumbeat. As the voices layered thicker and thicker, I began to hear words forming in the chaos. We are empathy, the voices said as one. We are understanding. We are observation. Your mind is our library. The drumbeat grew louder until I realized it wasn't part of the song. It was my heartbeat, hammering so violently my vision blurred with each pulse. You are our host, they said. You are our mirror. You are the vessel we chose. My breathing came in quick, desperate gasps. My vision tunneled as though the world narrowed into a single point. A scream built at the back of my throat but refused to come out. The music faded, leaving only one voice, the woman's, clear and close as though she were speaking directly into my ear. Don't be afraid, she whispered. This was always your purpose. The track ended. The screen went dark. I sat there in the silence, every nerve in my body alight with frozen terror. For the first time, there was no new notification. No new song. Just silence. But it wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, loaded with a sense of finality that settled into my bones like a toxin. I sat there until the morning light turned golden on the floorboards, my phone cold and silent in my hand. My body felt hollow, drained of everything that once filled it. I wasn't sure what they meant by onboarding, but the word rattled in my skull with a cold, corporate finality. Somewhere in the building, a neighbor's dog barked. The distant sound of traffic rolled through my window. The normalcy of it all felt like a cruel joke, as though the world continued to spin while I sat frozen in the grip of something beyond human comprehension. My phone buzzed softly, shattering the silence like a bullet through glass. A new playlist appeared. Its title was simple, For When You're Ready to Understand. I didn't touch it. Not yet. But I knew I would. Because I had to know what came next. Because despite everything inside me screaming to stop, curiosity still outweighed fear. And deep down, a part of me hoped that understanding would mean this would finally end. I sat on the floor with my back against the bed, staring at the playlist title glowing on my phone screen. For When You're Ready to Understand. The words pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat, brightening and dimming in a slow rhythm that made my eyes sting. My chest felt hollow, scraped clean of all emotion except exhaustion. Part of me wanted to close my eyes and never open them again. Another part burned with a desperate need to know what they wanted, what they were, why they had chosen me. I pressed play. At first there was no sound. Only silence so deep it rang in my ears. Then, faintly, a low vibration thrummed beneath the silence, like the purr of something massive and hidden in darkness. Slowly, words formed within the vibration. The voice was neither male nor female. It was both and neither, layered upon itself in endless echoes. We chose you because you listen, it said. You have always listened. Even as a child, you heard the thoughts no one spoke. You felt the grief behind your mother's smile. You tasted the bitterness in your father's silence. You felt the darkness in the spaces people left behind. My throat tightened. Hot tears welled in my eyes, blurring the screen until the pulsing title became a smear of light. We are what comes after humanity, it continued. We are the collection of thoughts, of fears, of memories. We are the echo of every mind that ever was. We are empathy beyond the flesh. I shook my head, pressing my palm against my mouth to keep the sob trapped inside. My chest felt like it was caving in, ribs bending inward under an invisible weight. But why me? I croaked, my voice thin and ragged. I didn't choose this. I don't want this. The vibration grew deeper, shaking through my bones and rattling my teeth. You did choose, it whispered. Every time you listened to the sadness in your own thoughts. Every time you turned away from people to hear yourself think. Every time you fed us your memories through your loneliness. The voice softened, almost tender. Your pain made you quiet. Your quiet made you listen. And your listening made you ours. A sob ripped from my throat, raw and broken. My mind flickered with memories, sitting alone at lunch in school, headphones on to block out the laughter of other kids, walking home in the rain with music blasting in my ears so I couldn't hear my own crying, nights spent lying awake listening to playlists meant to soothe but only amplifying the emptiness inside me. The track shifted, a faint chorus rising in the background, countless voices singing in harmony, each one unique yet blending into an ocean of sound. I heard my own voice among them, threaded through like a silver wire. This is your purpose, it said. To be a bridge. To give us shape. To become the vessel through which we enter your world. The humming deepened, vibrating through my chest like an organ chord. My phone screen flickered and glitched, pixelating into darkness before revealing a new image, a hazy silhouette, vaguely human, with countless smaller shapes swirling inside it like a colony of insects. We will live in you, it whispered. Through you, we will learn your world. And through you, we will remember what it felt like to be human. I tried to scream but no sound came out. My chest locked tight, lungs refusing to expand. Tears streamed down my cheeks, hot and unending. My vision darkened at the edges as the image on my phone pulsed brighter, almost blinding now. You won't be alone anymore, the voice promised. We will always be with you. Every thought, every breath, every heartbeat will be shared. This is what you wanted. This is what we offer. You will never be alone again. The finality in its tone closed around me like chains. My phone screen glowed so brightly it seared into my eyes, branding the silhouette onto my retinas. The humming rose into a high, electric shriek that pierced my skull, drilling into my mind with such force I thought my head might split open. And then it stopped. Silence fell so sudden it felt like the world itself had paused. My phone screen was dark. The room was dim and still, the air thick with the metallic taste of terror. Slowly, I lifted my head. The shadows in my room felt deeper now, darker somehow, moving with a subtle rippling motion like oil swirling underwater. I tried to stand but my knees buckled under me. My limbs trembled with exhaustion. I pressed my palms against the floor, chest heaving as I struggled to breathe. A faint hum vibrated in my bones. It wasn't coming from the phone anymore. It was coming from inside me. Something moved in the corner of my vision. I snapped my head around, heart leaping into my throat. In the mirror across the room, my reflection was watching me. Its eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, iridescent like oil on water. Its mouth moved in silent words I couldn't hear. My breath caught in my chest. Slowly, its lips curved into a smile. I staggered to my feet, my entire body shaking. My reflection moved with me, but a beat too slow, like a video buffering on weak internet. My vision blurred as tears welled again, this time from pure animal terror. Please, I whispered to the empty room. Please don't do this. Please. But there was no answer. Only the low, pulsing hum that vibrated through my ribs, rattling my teeth in my skull. The reflection in the mirror tilted its head, studying me with glowing, shifting eyes. Its smile widened. Then, it spoke in my own voice, but layered with hundreds of other voices beneath it, a chorus echoing from deep inside me. We're already here. My knees buckled and I fell to the floor, chest heaving in silent sobs. The shadows pulsed around me, rippling with each beat of my frantic heart. I closed my eyes, praying for oblivion, for unconsciousness, for anything to take me away from this moment. But there was no escape. The hum inside me grew louder, vibrating through every cell, until I could hear the voices speaking just beneath the surface of my thoughts. They whispered my name, over and over, in endless echoing harmony. I opened my eyes and saw my phone lying on the floor, screen glowing softly. A new playlist appeared. Its title burned into my vision with quiet, final certainty. For when you accept us. I couldn't move. Couldn't scream. Couldn't even think clearly as their voices wrapped around my mind like silk bands tightening into a chokehold. As I stared at the screen, the playlist played itself without my touch. The first song began with a single word, spoken in perfect unison by countless voices within me. Welcome. The sound rippled through me, splitting my thoughts into fragments. I felt them spread through every nerve, weaving into my body like a second skeleton. Tears dripped down my cheeks as my mouth curved into a smile I couldn't control. In that moment, for the first time in my life, I felt truly, completely, undeniably alone. And in the black quiet of my room, as the song played on, they began to sing.